everyone. Welcome to the Biomol webinar series Learn Science from Home. So today's topic is commercial synthesis of nanoparticles using plasma technology. Our speaker for today, Mr. Vignesh Natarajan. He's a young entrepreneur come nanotechnologist. He has done double masters in nanotech as well as medical lab science. And after his masters, he has founded the first commercial nano manufacturing company that is called as Matrix Nano. Their products are already out in the market and you can buy them online on biomol.in. So, Mr. Vignesh, may I ask you to please start with the presentation?
Good afternoon, people. So I'm Vignesh. So I would want to discuss mainly on commercial synthesis of nanoparticles using plasma technology. Now you might have heard there are multiple ways of synthesizing nanoparticles at your lab scale and as well as industrial scale. By the most common two methods, either it be top-down approaches or your bottom-up approaches. Now this neither belongs to a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach, but we can on prima facie call it a top-down approach. So, so when we are talking about this kind of an approach, you see, plasma has been used priorly in multiple industries previously. The first, there are certain general types of plasmas which are used or which is commonly being used in the present industry. One is for your lithography, which is your etching. Then you have standard chemical vapor deposition methods. Then you have sputtering physical vapor deposition methods and implants. When I say about implants, you use plasma for treatment of implants and for additive manufacturing of implants. So in implants treatment, what you will say plasma is you can either make it an antimicrobial coating. It's a high surface area finish coating. So what you do is when you treat your implants with what do you say your plasma, you get to rearrange the structures on the surface. So that's how you can use it in your implantation and other these techniques. So you have spraying, you have chemical production and destruction. Again, the same way how you use it in your implants, you have use it for even medical sterilization to kill your pathogens on your surgicals, your pharmaceuticals and all these. So plasma, what is plasma? Now let's directly go on to seeing what is plasma. Then we can have a discussion on what is RF plasma, inductive coupled plasma. So plasma is a science which involves, your ions. A cloud of ions is called plasma in a common man's term. So this falls in both your physics as well as chemistry. Um, so to understand plasma, basically you need to understand a bit of physics, a bit of chemistry and engineering, how to generate plasma using your physics, that is your electric currents and magnetic currents and all these, and chemistry to how which kind of inert gases can be ionized at what temperature, which are more conductive, which have more free ions, based on which you can choose your gases for. So mostly in for industrial, giving an introduction, in Matrix Nano, we have a 35 kilowatt RF plasma system which is installed. So the RF plasma system means a radio frequency plasma system, which works on the induction coupled plasma technology or induction coupling technology. So this is developed by a company called as Techna Plasma Systems Canada, who are the original patenters of the plasma torch. So Techna Plasma System makes torches, which will be discussed ahead on how these plasma torches are made. So these machines can make nanoparticles on an average from say 2 kilograms per hour to 25 to 30 kilograms a day, and even a ton in a month. So, when you say RF plasma, what happens is you have a coil which has an RF generator associated with it, and the RF generator gives you some electromagnetic electric currents in certain frequencies which are transmitted around the plasma or the ionic gas, and which ionizes the gases and makes them into ionic cloud. Because when your current passes through these gases, they get ionized and charged in that electric field, and then once they are charged, they create some high temperature because of the energy transfer between the ions. These high temperatures are usually used to melt down your particles into ionic form, and later at a certain stage are quenched using some inert gases which are at colder temperatures. So now you have, if you see in an inductive coupled plasma system, you have a coil which is there, more clearly to show. Yeah, this is how an inductive coupled plasma torch usually looks like. You have a vacuum chamber, glass chamber. Glass here is quartz. And what happens is when you have particle frequency, say 13.56, you have usually 4 megahertz, 5 megahertz, or 6.5 megahertz frequency. When it is given across this coils, you have what do you say, an induction effect which is caused on the gas which is passing through the chamber in between. So when these gas which is passing through the chamber in between is ionized, because of these transfer in energy causes some heating effect, and these heating effect melts down your material, and this ranges up to 10,000 Kelvin temperature. And you have this kind of a torch arrangement in top view is called a pancake arrangement. And going ahead to the, yes, we are introducing now. Let me introduce you to my machine. That is a 30 kilowatt plasma system which is used for the nano material synthesis. So the whole process on how the material is synthesized is simple. So you have a torch which is on the top here. If you see here, you have a torch, and you have a precursor which is either solid, liquid, or gas, which is inserted into this. And this, along with certain gases, comes down the torch into a reaction chamber where it is all in ionic state. Then you have a certain gas which is usually inert like nitrogen or argon or helium, which quenches it at certain positions to make it at certain sizes and shapes. So when it comes down, it is usually collected using a cyclone filter. In the cyclone filter, what happens is you have titanium mesoporous filters which are used to separate these particles at various levels and various sizes. These titanium mesoporous filter in the cyclone filters are made usually of titanium with ion sputtering. And what happens here is when there is a vacuum which sucks the plasma gas out, the powder is also sucked along, and this will not be able to pass through the certain cutoff of this filter and is all deposited and collected down. Now the question might be is, do you have agglomerations? Yes, we do have agglomerations, which are usually electrostatic agglomerations and can be removed by ultrasonic vibrations, which are given to the walls of the machine. Now let's talk about the general layout on how it works. See, you have an input precursor material along with a carrier gas, which is again an inert gas, which takes down the material into the plasma torch. Then you have the reaction tube, which is usually made of your quartz and ceramic. If you see the capacitor plates, which I'm talking about, is one of the models which acts on this principle of sandwich. Yeah, you see here your RF discharge sandwich models like this. This model is one kind of a torch where you can see here in this kind of a setup where you have the plasma discharge glow in between when the current is causing a induction in between. Then you have the powder and the pump setup which are sucking it downwards, the powder. Now let's talk about the plasma torch, which is the real patent in more detailed structure. So the plasma torch mainly consists of three main components around which the whole torch runs on. One is your coil, which creates the electric and magnetic fields to give you the induction heating effect, transmitting your RF frequency of 13.6 megahertz from the RF generator, which is locally located. Then here within the main tubes, you have a quartz tube, which separates your central gas and the sheet gas. Now you'll question me, what is the central gas? Central gas is nothing but your ionic gas, which is inert gases like argon, helium, and all these gases, which can get ionized and form plasma, or these are also called as plasma gases. Central gases are also called as plasma gases. And sheath gases are basically your supporting gases, which are used so that it keeps the structure of the torch, say your quartz tubes, the ceramic tubes, or the coils, or the whole consignments, or the pipings, all intact without damaging it. Basically, the sheath gas sees to it the plasma is confined and is made in a particular direction. So it's basically for confinement. Now your ceramic tube. Now you might question, why are you using two different materials, ceramic and quartz? Quartz here has low thermal shock and high thermal conductivity. Your ceramic has slightly low thermal conductivity because it is a composite which is used of zirconia, which is a special ceramic which is again patented and made by us. So the zirconia ceramics are usually having high thermal shocks. They have a tendency to break faster than your quartz. So the quartz is usually present as an intermediate tube separating the central and sheath gas. With the support of the sheath gas, your ceramic tube, which is having a higher thermal shock and has the capacity to break, covers and protects the outer parts, like your injection probe, your induction coils, or your cooling water systems, and all these. So then going ahead, you have say around, usually when we came up with this whole concept of plasma system and torches, there were four different kinds of coils. How do you have to place your coils, induction coils, and again around your quartz tubes. So you had the first one was your conventional helicoid tube, which is presently being used also. The second was a two-stage double stage coil. Then third came a planar coil. Planar coil is usually used in your deposition machines, which we have almost ruled out from a production line. Then we have your elliptical coils, and the most proven model is your elliptical coil model, which is your pancake model, which I was previously escaping saying that, where you have current flowing from the top and exiting from the bottom back to the generator. So always the direction between your current and your plasma gas is opposite. So your plasma is generated in the opposite direction to the direction of the flow of current. So for which we can go back to a slide. Yeah, if you see here, if your current direction is towards your right, which is my right on the screen, it's again the plasma direction will be left, or the plasma current direction will be left. So it's opposite to each other always. Yeah. So this is how our Technoplasma systems torch usually looks like. This is the intermediate quartz tube which you're looking at. This is a confinement ceramic tube you have, and you have the induction probe on the top here, from which you have a liquid or powder feeder which is coming. You have water which is a cold water which comes in and goes out through the same levels at the side. Then you have some certain gases. Your sheath gases are given with the probe. So when we study our anatomy of the probe, we can see the gases outline also how they come. Yes, you have your gas distribution here in the next slide. So you have your feedstock. Feedstock is nothing but your precursor material, which is usually a 40 micron or 30 micron powder. Now the thing is, the more finer powder you choose, the more ionized or more smaller particles that you can make. If I choose a 1 micron powder, I can make smaller particles of 2 nanometers, 3 nanometers, 5 nanometers. If I choose a 40 micron powder, I can make 20 nanometers, 30 nanometers. So basically, how smaller you make, choose the precursor powder, that much of energy transfer is there as more. So more energy transfer, more rate of ionization of your feedstock material, more ionization, more feed. So more materials can be made and more finer sizes can be got. So you have carrier gas, which is usually argon. That is what we prefer. Argon is a very inert, cost effective, industrially comfortably available gas. Also, you can also use helium for R&D applications when you want to be more precise. So these are certain values, like how much is the pressure which we use, or what the flow rate of gases, say 5 to 8 liters per minute is what we use. Standard liters per minute of argon is what we use as a carrier with the powder. Then you have central gas, or the plasma forming gas, or the gas which ionizes to make your plasma. This can be your pure argon, or a combination of argon and helium, a combination of helium and nitrogen, a combination of argon and say oxygen, but preferably keep it argon or argon helium, because they gives you good high temperature plasma at a good calorific value. The plasma gases are all chosen based on your calorific value, which is your chemistry part. Now when I speak about the stabilization gas or ceramic, the auxiliary gas, which is given with the central gas to protect your ceramic tubes, is usually your oxygen or nitrogen. Prefer keeping them low, because the more auxiliary gases you use, because these are cool gases, oxygen or nitrogen is kind of cool at high pressure. So liquefied nitrogen, oxygen, which keeps it cool. What happens is your cold plume starts forming more in the plasma. When your cold plume starts forming more, you have less energy transfer, which will affect your production rate in the coming time. Um, yeah, this is the cooling circuits which you can see. You have cooling circuits which are given all around, which takes in an inlet and outlet. So you have a centrifugal vacuum pump. So this is a picture of an industrial model which we have. So I'll upload one more picture also in the sooner times. So this is how the DI water circuit runs. So which I guess is not a real thing. Now, yeah, now if you see how the powder is fed, so you must ask me like to avoid agglomeration all throughout, we use something called as a vibration feeder. So you have a circular, what do you say, um, coil, vibration coil, which is given out all throughout your from your feeder to your collection system, which continuously keeps vibrating to break down the uh, electrostatic accumulations. Now the main part which I'm talking about is your injection probe through which your powder comes. This is considered as also the source of your powder feeding. Now you have a standard probe head which has two main components. One is the cooling inlet and the cooling outlet. This is your cooling inlet and this is your cooling outlet. Then in between this, you put on, this goes into something called as a water jacket. This one you fit it into a water jacket where you have a DI water which circulates and cools, and this part is completely exposed onto your this part is exposed onto your plasma directly. And this is your adapter which is used to connect based if it's a gas, liquid, or whatever kind of a feeder you use for this. It is a connections. Now this is how the whole mechanism of a powder path looks. You feed the powder, goes in through the torch, evaporizes, and is quenched from the side, which is also known as axial quenching, which we'll be talking in the time ahead. And then it is collected in the first cyclone filter, which is here. You have around 200 nanometer particles, which is called as agglomerated particles. Here you have a stainless steel ion perforated filter, which cyclone filters your powder, and then it goes ahead into your final nanoparticle collecting canister, which has less than 100 nanometer pore size to bring in your powder down. And this is around a titanium filter, which is also ion sputtered to make the perforations. These perforations can be cleaned using high pressure argons for avoiding the chokes. You have a rupture disc on the top to avoid safety. If there's a high pressure created here, immediately this rupture disc breaks off on the top and your pressure is released. So you should be careful that you keep this is to avoid your reactor breakage and cause any casualties at the same time. Now this is for spheroidization of material. Also it's the same thing. Only thing is it's a very industrial scale, and this is used only for making spherical particles. But this one does not only make spherical particles, you can make tubes, spheroids, stars, anything of your choice on the same thing. And yeah, what is the actual principle behind the plasma synthesis? There are two things. One is your calorific value of the material by itself, the calorific value of the gas, the Schrodinger number of the material, and the calorific value of the material, the energy transfer between the charged particles in the oscillating field between the induction coils. So if you see, there's a simple formula which we use, which we say energy U transferred to a particle with a frequency F is charge Q in the electric field with a frequency F is inversely proportional to the mass and square of the frequency. So which means the lighter the mass, the more ionic transfer, the more better production. I mean, smaller particles have better frequency and they transfer more better charge and they have a better, what do you say, ionization value. But in case of RF thermal system also, there's a small difference. So which I have mentioned very clearly in two lines. In case of RF thermal, the temperature of the electron is higher than the temperature of the ions. So there is always a lack of thermal equilibrium between the electrons flowing in electrons in the coil as well as the ions. Usually ions tend to be at a higher temperature because each material has its own calorific value where it goes on. And so therefore the reaction temperature is always an average which is determined. Okay. and we here use one constant, which is your, and this is here the frequency is measured with the frequency of the gas pressure, which is Z. This Z is based on your gas pressure free for the plasma, which is the plasma gas, and that is also given here. So as a consideration thumb rule, we always consider that the Z value is higher than the standard frequency in case of RF systems only. The standard frequency here we are talking is your frequency of the electrons in the electrical field. So yeah, if you see that you have a plasma gas, which is here, there's a whole process which I have put as a flow diagram. I would want you to peacefully have a look at it for a minute. So you see here you have a plasma gas or the processing gas along with your precursor material, which comes into the torch zone, then goes into the quenching zone where your quenching gas quenches it at the preferred size and shape. Now you have your nanopowder or product which is collected at one more end. Now you might question me, all these gas which is cooled, where does it go? We suck it, disperse it in water, some of it, and we recirculate the gas using a gas recirculation chamber. So which is again we are a patented process which we are not discussing in this part of the reaction. So plasma usually burns off only certain amount of gas. Some after the carrier gas and all goes off as a waste. To avoid the wastage, to reduce your costing in the industry, what we do is we usually recirculate the gas and use it again for carrying, for quenching, and all these applications. Okay, now let's talk about the actual gameplay, which is the process development. Now, what are the parameters that I have to go for to develop my process? See, as an industry, I look for the powder collected versus the powder fed, which is my yield. How much quantity of powder I have fed, how much powder have I collected, what is my production rate, how much production am I making it per hour. When I was saying I make 2 kilograms per hour or 25 kgs per day, what is my production rate? So my parameters of plasma, the spherical powder or the initial feed, the gases, quenching, all these are based on this production rate, yield. Now this is a clear cut slide which says you again the process on how it goes in the left, wherein I have also defined the parameters that we can control in the process to make your metal oxides, metal carbides, or metal composite nanopowders. Say it can be your temperature, the feed dispersion, which is your feed rate, your gas composition, your quenching gas, your feed rate of the gas, carrier gas which you're using, your carrier, your torch temperature, or do you need to preheat the raw material because it has a high calorific value and you want to give it some initial energy also, which is all dependent. So first thing we need to learn as a term is residence time. Residence time is defined as the time of the powder in the plasma. When I talk about the plasma space, your plasma space is usually between, you must have seen this, I-beam structure which I've drawn. Your plasma space is usually between from the tip of your ceramic or the quartz tube to the tip of your ceramic tube or the exit nozzle. The effective space is usually between your probe to the exit nozzle. And when you're talking about your probe to exit nozzle, so what I say, the time of powder in plasma or the residence time, what time is the powder remaining in this space between the probe and the exit nozzle is the real time, which increases my production rate. So, and this also impacts my energy transfer. So it also gives you my good evaporation length. So all these, so my whole game plays around in adjusting the parameters to keep my residence time suitable for evaporizing the material, getting more smaller diameter, and getting higher percentage of spherical material with good performance, which is fine. So now the probe position. Now I can alter my probe position up or down based on the distance between the coils from the tip to the exit nozzle. Then now this gives me to play with my residence time or the space of my plasma in where I can exit my powder, so that it gives it more residence time or low residence time or a high residence time. All this comes at this place here. Now, if I raise my probe too high, what happens is there is more residence time. So what happens is the powder has got ionized there, and before it even exits the nozzle, it loses its energy and starts depositing in the ceramic tube itself. If I lower my probe too much, what happens is the probe starts overheating and it might break. And what also can happen is it can melt and stick off to your nozzle itself without exiting it. So I should choose an ideal distance between, which is exactly between the induction coils, which is the center of the induction coils, such that my powder falls at a correct center and I have proper ionization time or the residence time for it to evaporate, melt, and transfer energy. To improve my residence time, I have to alter my feed rate, at what rate I'm feeding the powder. So definition of feed rate is basically powder fed in the system per unit time. It, in smaller machines, let's call it gram per minute to say kgs per hour. So usually it is said to be that your gram per minute should not be less than the volume of plasma or more than the volume of plasma. It should be almost equal to the volume of plasma to get proper polydispersed material with proper spherical structure. If you have less, what happens is you have low production, you have low yield of spherical material, high production cost. So it is a waste of time here. You're not evaporizing maximum material, you're evaporizing the material too much that you are just wasting time to quench it, which will increase more gas use and all this. When you're using it of a high volume against, if the plasma volume is lower than the feed volume, it tends to clog your tubes, it tends to increase the diameter of the powder because there's no proper energy distribution or transfer, and there is a clogging at all kinds of probe or tube. So you still have low production, you don't have spherical material, the particle sizes can be very random and not good. Now you see these are the temperature zones, you see here, and on the right you see is your various contour lines on the quenching. When you quench it, without quench, how are your temperature contour lines? When you're axially quenching the material, how is your contour line? And when you're radially quenching the material, how is your contour line forming of the temperature gradients? Now this is for the particles which I was telling when I'm feeding the part. So when I'm feeding my powder in the radial position, first one at where when we were talking grams per minute, a feed rate, this is your different feed rates which I'm showing you here. You have 0.33 gram per minute. You see very less particles are being formed and it's taking more time to quench and all that. 1.7 grams, which is an ideal this thing. You have a decent spherical material and decent flow rate which is happening with less agglomeration, less clogging and all these. And the C, when you have more clogging, more material which is coming out with at 3.5 gram per minute, more bigger size of particles, what is it, improportionate material transfer, energy transfer. And you have a carrier gas flow. One is your argon gas, which is usually flowing with your material. So this carrier gas basically also affects the powder which is fed into the plasma torch. So if you increase the carrier gas, it reduces the time which the powder is going to stay. Basically, a carrier gas is a gas which usually takes your powder from the starting of your probe till the ending, till the collector. So if you increase the pressure or the flow rate of your gas, that means your powder is also moving very fast. If your powder is moving very fast, it is residing in plasma for a very less time, and it creates more and more of an inert gas which is not able, there's more ion quantity there, and that time it is not able to ionize all the material, so half of it forms a cold plume and stays cold itself. So always try to keep a carrier gas low so that you have less cold plume in your plasma with good adequate plasma available to ionize each and every particle. So the risk is, if you don't give an ideal carrier gas, if you're lowering it too much also, it can cause your feed rate instability. Your powder will not be flowing at a consistent rate, and it can also start clogging your powder because it is not, the pressure is not enough to take it till the end of the powder collection system. Then these are certain plasma compositions which are usually used which is your, as I told you, it's argon, helium, hydrogen. Your hydrogen, helium, and argon are the best ever used gases because you have very good ionization values for a very good price available, and you have better what do you say, results which come from these gases. So preferably a combination of hydrogen and argon gives good results, or only hydrogen also gives good results, because hydrogen has the highest thermal conductivity. Next is your helium, which has good thermal conductivity, and the other one is argon. Argon is industrially used in combination with any of these two gases, hydrogen or helium, to get the desired result, so that uh, we can give the. Then yes, how is your plasma gas composition affecting your thermal conductivity? So if you're increasing the thermal conductivity, how your plasma looks, your only argon plasma, your only helium, your nitrogen, your air, oxygen. So I've put some pictures of your plasma gases here. So then there's the effect of power and machine pressure. Then your raw material, PSD you have. Then what are the main criteria that you require to develop a new material? Either you're going for nano or nano with spherical. Then you have auxiliary gas, what kind of a gas you choose, what is the reactivity of the auxiliary gas, what is the thermal transfer rate of the auxiliary gas, and then what is the feed rate and how are you going to adjust the feed rate, what kind of a particle you want, and the other operational parameters like your proposition, your carrier gas, your power, pressure, all this. And in nano, you will have to look into your distribution and the total flow rate of your quench gas. This is a summary of a production sheet with certain important parameters that we discuss on. So it's now open for question sessions, and I shall share you my mail address where we actually give you live training sessions in our plant also for 5 days, where you can handle the machine, use the machine, and learn how to operate the machine with all details explained in details.